Hi, and welcome everyone to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Today we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so excited to have you here today. And as you just heard, we are broadcasting live on Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, as well as the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Much thanks to them. You can find them on FM radio as well as all streaming services. So super excited for tonight's conversation. And this conversation sits at the crossroads of science, consciousness, and something humanity seems to have misplaced along the way. The Ascension Chronicles and the Forgotten Knowledge of Humanity asks a dangerous and fascinating question. What if our greatest limitation isn't the universe, but the way we perceive it? In the Quantum Gate, our guest challenges the idea that consciousness is produced by the brain and instead suggests that it might be something far older, deeper, and deliberately filtered. We talk a lot about consciousness on this network, so this is going to be really intriguing. This is not a discussion about belief, but about perception, memory, and what might happen when the gate begins to open. And I'm so excited to welcome the author of The Quantum Gate, Bill Combs, for a conversation that invites us to look at reality and ourselves with very different eyes. So let's welcome. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Carol-Ann.
It's so good to see you. And of course, we have my little dog here barking up the storm. Oliver, calm down.
Well, hello, Oliver.
Yes. Oliver has a very big mouth, as you'll discover. It's okay, baby. Go lay down. Oh, you gotta love dogs.
Absolutely.
Hello, Heidi. So good. Yes, hello to Oliver as well. Heidi, how you doing? I'm hoping you feel better and everything's working out. And I'll be in touch with you to check in. And Bill, you'll see from time to time we say hello to our folks that pop into the chat. Hello, Carrie. So good to see you. Thank you for showing up. And a quick mention, on all the social media platforms, there's usually a chat. So don't be shy, pop in, say hello, ask questions, make some comments. We love hearing from you. So Bill, tell us about who you are, first and foremost. And of course, tell us about this exciting book that you wrote. I absolutely loved it. Maybe you have a hard copy you can show us, because I have the PDF version. So I can't really show. There we go.
You can see it.
Yeah, I think more in the middle. Yeah, perfect. Just back up a little bit. Okay, The Quantum Gate. I love the book cover too. Good job. So tell us about yourself. We on a need-to-know basis here.
Need-to-know basis. Okay. Well, my story started when I was very young. So I've always been interested. Been a voracious reader. My mom had a bunch of books about Edgar Cayce when I was growing up, and I discovered those around the age of 10, and I started reading them. And I was reading them voraciously. Once I started, I couldn't stop, so I started reading all types of books on metaphysics and consciousness and New Age phenomena, et cetera, and never really stopped. My entire life spent that way. I also got really into science, kind of went to school for it, studied all the major sciences, both undergrad and graduate level. Love science at its purest form, especially quantum physics. That was sort of like the one area of science that really kind of fit with my personal philosophy and ideas of the universe and life. And so I basically taught and spoke to various groups over the years. And when I moved here to Asheville, I really one day was in meditation, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I was going to do. I had come here to go to school, and I wanted to kind of link up with the tribe that was here. This is just beginning at the beginning of COVID, so it's kind of hard to link up with anybody around that time. And I was looking for, just wanted to meet up, try to find a group to get together with, some people to talk with. And in the meditation, I had this, just came to me and said, no, you're not going to find anything here. You got to create what you want. So it came up with this name in my head, Quanticism, which is a blending of science and mysticism. And I began working through that and teaching here locally still do it for a number of years. And then one day I met an author friend here who was just telling me, why don't you just go ahead and write what you teach in a book? And so I did that. But then I really kind of got the bug to put this information, subtly into stories. And I love storytelling. I do it in my presentations. And so I started writing books on stories. And The Quantum Gate was sort of like the first book. It was a story that I used to tell myself. It was a daydream that I would tell myself growing up. Took that and made it into a novel. And then it's just the first part of a series of stories and ideas that I want to present. Just put it out there and see what people think.
Yeah. So how many books are in this series? 4? Is it?
There are going to be 3. There are 2 right now that are published. The third one's coming out later this year. But it's the first leg. This is a triangle kind of situation where I've got a series that's going to be these 3 books, The Quantum Gate being the first. There's another series that I'm getting ready to release the first book in that, which is it takes place in the same universe. There's overlap between characters, but it's a different type of story. And then when those 2 finish, there'll be a third series, which will be sort of like a capstone series where all the characters kind of work together to work through a particular challenge or set of challenges. So there'll be 9 altogether.
Wow. That's a bold adventure.
Yes, it is. But I'm excited about it.
I like that. Oh, yeah. So the Quantum Gate explores a bold working theory that human consciousness is not produced by the brain, but instead interacts with reality through like a kind of filtering mechanism. Am I correct? Am I on the right track?
It's similar, yeah. I mean, in the Quantum Gate, I kind of posited the idea of consciousness was non-local to our human body, and that where it exists is kind of up for debate, and people there are literally thousands of people talking about this all the time, but it's not local to us. It's non-local. And therefore, one of the biggest challenges we have as human beings is trying to remember who we really are, what we really are. And we go through our challenges, our traumas, our successes all through life, and those things tend to have leave a mark. And in that book, the protagonist went through a very severe trauma when he lost his wife, and that's kind of what kickstarts him into this series of adventures that culminate with him finding what he's always sought, which was the legendary Hall of Records.
Like the Akashic.
Yeah, this is the Hall of Records that Edgar Cayce wrote about. So this is actually the physical sort of spiritual place that contains everything, all the records of our ancient civilizations, our past, that were never really part of our curriculum.
Do you personally believe in these theories that are in the book? Are they reflections of what you believe on a spiritual level?
Yeah, I do, and that's very much so. It's kind of who I am, and I just kind of try to pull those into stories in a way. I'm not there to preach or change anybody's mind. It's just putting stuff in there, and just my hope is that folks will read the book and at least be, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a lot of conversation about, we were just talking about consciousness yesterday, and a lot of the working theory as of late, from what I've been reading and talking to folks about, is that consciousness, you're right, doesn't exist within you or within the brain, but it's really external to us. And it kind of is a unifying force too. So we're all connected to consciousness, to the source, to the light, whatever verbiage you want to use. So now you're a man of science. what's the latest science on consciousness? I mean, I read things all the time. I know they weigh a person after they die, and they
Yep.
could see the
Yep.
body is fraction of a whatever lighter, and
Yep.
there's all that good stuff going on. So what say you about the connection to science and consciousness?
In neuroscience today, it's kind of a split camp because there are many scientists who look at this and acknowledge the fact that consciousness is non-local. There's so
Mhm.
many individual observational things that kind of validate that idea. But because but also people will look at the like brain scans of somebody who's going through who's passed a near-death experience, for example. Great
Yeah.
example. They can look at the brain scans, and even though you don't see anything measured, they'll say, "Oh, yeah, something's going on anyway. It's just
Mhm.
really deep. You can't quite see it." So there are folks who are trying very hard to keep the existing paradigm and to insist and ignore other observational and some really good studies that show that consciousness is non-local. I mean,
Mm.
it's almost to the point of being more people are beginning to accept it, but for the most part, right now, there's still this debate. So I'm not going to say one way or the other where it's absolutely been proven. It hasn't been. It's still
Yeah.
debatable. However, I do believe that there is more information coming out every day,
Oh, yeah.
and I would hope, like everything else in science, I mean, science is a funny animal. When things kind of get ingrained in for a while, it takes a lot to move it and to move it forward, which is really the opposite of what science is supposed to be, which is, you observe, you see something different, you decide, well, maybe I'm not quite exactly right about this. Let me go
Yeah.
explore some more. But we don't do that because science is very ingrained. I mean, if we changed a fundamental feature, for
Yeah.
example, when I was in graduate school, we talked about epigenetics,
Mm.
and that theory came out in the early 90s, but even graduate level textbooks barely mentioned it in 2022.
Yeah.
So it just takes a very long time for us to shift gears.
Yeah, I agree. And it's sad because science, um, we rely on science and the scientific method. And a lot of the folks in that community too are very resistant to any type of change. I mean, I see a little bit of a bend like the
Right,
past maybe 5 years, but there's still a lot of they think it's woo woo and woo woo
right,
science and all that good
right.
stuff. But
It's funny because I look at in quantum physics, like the observer effect, the double slit experiment,
yeah.
which is like the most woo-woo kind of experiment. And it's also probably one of the most repeated experiments in all of science.
Mm,
And it still has split the community down the middle, where folks are either it's something else, it can't be what people think it is, and it's silly because it's like it's okay. I mean, we for us to consider the fact that we know everything and can measure everything
right.
is just kind of bordering on arrogance.
It really is. I love that premise, that theory, the observer effect. It's, a whole particle and waves kind of thing. And it makes so much sense.
Yep.
Like to me, I guess it does, especially, being in this industry. It speaks to folks like us more so than science does. But um, I think what I really liked about your book too is it draws from quantum physics, neuroscience, psychology, human experience, and it kind
Mhm.
of connects that observer effect,
Right.
the idea that influences come from or at the quantum level, right? And
Mhm.
maybe that's where consciousness resides too, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so cool.
and for me, the quantum gate, it tended to focus heavily on the idea of quantum superposition, or this
Yeah.
concept that we have the number of choices we have is always infinite, and we tend to be the ones limiting those choices. And so choice becomes a very big theme in the book, and how to kind of break through the idea that you know, I have no choice, or I
Yeah.
could do one or the other kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I read a study. They did some kind of fMRI scan, and they were showing that we think we have free will when we don't, because many of the decisions we think we're making our brain is making milliseconds before we even
Yep.
make the decision. So that's kind of freaky too.
Yep.
That's really, that kind of blew me away because, we all think we have free will, but meanwhile, there's like this external force, maybe consciousness, that's already made that decision, or maybe it's us making that decision and the brain is just reflecting it
Right.
milliseconds after, right?
Yep.
Something like that.
Right.
It gives me the chills. It's
Yeah.
crazy stuff, but I
Yeah.
love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
I mean, the thing is, and there's a lot of people talking about this today, the brain is a receiver.
Yeah.
That we are it's just a glorified receiver. And Bruce Lipton he's funny when he talks about when he puts himself on stage, he says, "This is the Bruce show. This is the Bruce show." And if you change the station, if you change the frequency that the brain's attuned to, you'll get something
Yeah.
totally different, which
Yeah.
helps explain things like sudden savant syndrome, where a person, will get a bump on the head and suddenly become, fluent in a language they never even studied. So, I mean, how do you explain that?
Yeah, they play the piano when they've never picked the piano
Right.
before, and
Right.
and some of them speak in different accents, like Australian accents, and it's just the most interesting
Yep.
thing. And I think we're really like at the precipice of maybe getting science to bend a little bit and see that it's not. I mean, there are scientists out there that are actually challenging gravity.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
that's a
Yep.
big one too.
Yep. Yep.
So I don't know. I don't know.
It'll be
It's
funny to
great.
see what the world looks like in the next 50 years.
Yeah, well, I won't be here for it, but it'll be
Neither will I, but as
yeah,
well,
unless
at
we
least not in this form.
reincarnate.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. And it's so frustrating because we also have that premise that we have forgotten, like you mentioned before. So even if we do reincarnate, which I believe we do,
Mhm.
none of that knowledge comes with us. And well, it does, but you kind of have to discover it. And maybe we discover that through life and suffering and joy and all the human experiences. That, I mean, we only have five senses that we count really,
Right.
to kind of go through this life in, when there's so much more, right?
So much
There's
more.
so
Yeah.
much more.
So much
Yeah.
more. We know
Yeah.
that, for example, just our physical senses perceive a fraction of what's even going on around us at any moment.
I mean, that they think about that. That's crazy. Like I just saw that crows are not really black. They're like this iridescent color, but
Yep.
we can't perceive it.
We can't
But they have
perceive.
technology that showed that they're
Yep.
this gorgeous rainbow of iridescent
Right.
blues and all different colors, and just, oh, look at this. My computer wants to update while I'm doing this. Jeez,
Always picks the
technology.
right time. Yep.
Always
Yep.
picks the right time. Exactly. But yeah, it's just, I love the fact that science is working hand in hand in helping us unearth these things. Like, look at all the NDEs folks that are
Oh,
having
yeah.
too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And now they're coming out and sharing their stories with us, whereas
Yep.
10, 15 years ago,
Yep.
you couldn't
They wouldn't
mention
do
it.
it. Yeah.
Now you wouldn't do it. You
Yep.
wouldn't. Now, have you ever had anything like spiritually profound happen to you that, okay, let's hear about
I
it.
did. I've been a meditator since I was a kid. So I was actually meditating. I was probably 16 at the time. And the meditation I used to do was just one of these kind of where I would just expand my consciousness and just kind of, you know, just step through the various hierarchy of, my home, my town, and then one day when I got into that, I ended up just kind of, it's like you feel like you're at the top of a slide and then you kind of start sliding down and you can't stop yourself. And
Mm,
so it expanded out tremendously. And that I got to that moment where I was one with everything.
mm.
I saw, understood, felt everything. And it was one of those amazing nanoseconds because as soon as my brain was registering what was happening, and I said, "Oh, wow, it was gone."
Yeah.
It was just gone that fast. But that moment changed me.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
uh, I totally became a different person after that moment. It's hard for me to get angry or upset. I see people's perspective even if they're being unreasonable, it's like I kind of see where it's coming from. And obviously you don't want to let yourself be battered by somebody, but at the same time, I sympathize and definitely have compassion for what they're doing and what they're going through.
Yeah, it does change you. Absolutely, for sure. I could relate to that in a big way because when I was about 15, 16, I was reading Cosmic Consciousness by Buck on my front porch. And I had a very similar experience happen while I was reading this one paragraph. I felt like I was shot into this euphoric
Yep.
state of
Yep.
being, kind of very similar to that. And
Yep.
I kept rereading the same passage thinking that it would happen again, but it never
Yeah,
does.
it never
It
does. Yeah.
never does. But it was very interesting and it does change you. It
Yep.
does absolutely change you.
Yep.
Is that the only experience that you had? Do you have any
I've had a
other?
couple more. I've had a couple just spontaneous, just love and just overwhelming love for people. I mean, of all places, coming back from the DMV, which you would think, it's not exactly
Yeah.
but I was coming
Nice.
back from the DMV and just driving, and I just suddenly my heart exploded, and I was just, feeling this euphoria, and for everybody and everything, and it was just this amazing feeling, and it lasted probably 5 or 10 minutes,
Oh, wow.
and it was great. I mean, it was like, it was the best thing in the world. I felt like $1 million after that.
Yeah, that's a blessing.
It is,
Now,
and then, meditating for me is a daily practice, and because of that, I'll have different experiences. Timelessness is something I'm very used to. I go through that. I'll get visions and ideas and downloads all the time, and that's a lot of times, when I was writing the Quantum Gate, the very first version of that, I was a little too preachy in the book. I was trying to push ideas, and I was getting a lot of pushback from people who were reviewing it for me. And I sat down in meditation and I invited the characters to come and sit with me and speak and tell me
mm,
their story. And they did. And these were different stories. And I took those stories that they told me, and that's what I wrote and updated for the next draft.
oh, wow.
That's the version you have right now. Yeah. The version that
Yeah.
before the other version, nobody wanted to read that.
Is that right? Did your publisher tell you that, or was it just feedback from?
Just feedback from friends and family. Yeah. Yeah.
So they felt it was too
Too
preachy?
preachy. Yeah, not it didn't have a it was more it was they said it was too, trying to textbooky kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they were right when I went through it again, but when I talked to the characters, oh my gosh, the characters talked to each other. It was just it was an amazing kind of experience to
Wow.
watch this unfold.
Yeah. It almost sounds like spirit guides were kind of guiding you through the characters
Yeah.
themselves.
Yep.
Yeah. But,
Yep.
I say a place for that other kind of book too, maybe in your world.
Yep. I
Um,
wrote that too then. That's what I did. I
oh,
ended
did
up
you?
writing them. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I wrote
definitely
I
see
have two
that.
nonfiction books out there, and they both basically talk about the philosophical, scientific aspects where I can be preachy. So it's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. Preachy is good sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah,
It's
yeah,
funny, I picked up on that, instantly just by talking to you that that book is in your in your future, shortly. That'll be interesting and fun to read for sure.
yep.
Um,
I got the let's see, there's 2 out right now. The 3rd book, I have a series of 5 that I talk about when I talk about this uplift model. So I have those coming out. Those are all nonfiction, spiritual,
nice.
new age, spiritual growth kind of books. Yeah.
Oh, I love reading those. Yeah. Yeah, there's always something, juicy that you can pick out of them,
Yep.
as as for a growth kinda shadow work kinda thing.
Yep. Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
have to ask you, we have all this love and light that we appreciate in our lives, but on the flip side of that, we know that there's yin and yang, there's lightness and dark, and how do you deal with that aspect of the world? Seeing life the way that you do now, how do you deal with the darkness?
This may sound crazy, but I kind of went after I don't do duality anymore. I understand duality. We have to, as physical beings, we have to deal with it, but I can't get too upset with it because it's just it's like the flip side of a coin.
Yeah.
And to me, it's something that we see and understand, but I resist getting pulled into it because I see both sides. I mean, when you're one with everything, it's really difficult to align with one particular thing. It just becomes a lot tougher.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to see the world um with the challenges that we're currently experiencing globally, not
Sure.
just within the United States. And it's like kind of for me it's a very heartbreaking thing to
It is
see.
because these people, everybody in this who's living on this planet makes choices every day.
Yeah.
And I don't like some of those choices.
Yeah.
I mean, I would not make them myself. But I
Exactly.
also have to understand from the perspective of they're a divine being and they have
Right.
free will and they have every right to make the choice they're making.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just something that I've gotten to be okay with, even if I don't like it.
Yeah. That's well said. I tend to agree with that. I don't dismiss the darkness because, like you said, it's the flip side of the coin. It's there.
Right.
I don't partake in it or have
Right.
anything to do with it, but I
Exactly. Yeah.
recognize it. I respect it in a way. And it's just heartbreaking, to
Right.
see. But
But you
I
don't
always
have to
like,
do that.
yeah, yeah. I always like to ask folks like
Yeah.
yourself how they deal with that because like even some psychics that I talk to, they will have absolutely nothing to do with the dark. Like they
Yep.
don't even want to talk about it.
Sure.
And then there are some that do that work in
Yep.
helping folks get rid of it out of their
Yes.
lives. And, so
Yep.
I guess it's a
Yep.
personal
It's a
preference and
personal thing.
maybe,
Yeah. It's a
yeah,
personal.
what you're
I mean,
called
I
to do.
put that in the, if you remember in the Quantum Gate, I don't want to get too much, but if you remember the scene with Martel and Voss, and that was absolutely a microcosm of this
Mm,
very macrocosmic question of you could choose a different path for yourself at any moment, and if you don't, that's okay, but there are consequences for that.
yeah, that's so true. So, it's interesting too, because I loved how you used grief as like a catapult.
Mhm.
Um, and I was able to very much relate to that as my husband passed away 4 years ago,
Oh,
and that
sorry.
did
No,
thank you, but
no,
that does catapult you into a whole
absolutely.
different level, and
Yep.
so does any other, unfortunate experience that whether it's divorce or losing any loved one or even moving. I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
moving for some people is very traumatic, losing
Yep.
a pet, I mean,
Yep.
but, yeah, so it's definitely did you have any experience with that, or was that something that just for that character, you just thought it was a
It
good
was
way to
it wa
tell a
I've had,
story?
I mean, obviously, I haven't lost a spouse, but I've lost a lot of family members, and for that character, he needed that. He needed that because that was the only way that it was going to, and this is where I look at sometimes traumas and the dark side of things that tend to move us in the direction we need to go. And it's not because I feel like it's the only way to move us, but it's the way that tends to be the most successful with human beings. And so
Yeah,
this was his way to kind of get him moving in the right direction.
yeah. So tell us about some of the other characters that, kinda resonated with you on a spiritual level.
Well, all the characters are basically in the book are reflections of parts of me. Um, even the ones that even the antagonist, there's parts of him that are absolutely part of my personality as well. And I did that purposefully because I wanted to, it's the easiest way to write a character is to be able to at least identify with them at some level. And so with Ethan, he represented me as the person who was science and spirituality and trying to reconcile the two and study the two, and he was ridiculed because he was too much on the woo side by his scientific peers, but he wasn't enough for other folks, so he kind of fell in this kind of in between space. His
Mm,
daughter, who, as a result of the trauma of losing her mother and his wife, became, and because he effectively abandoned her as a result of that, she
mm,
became the antithesis of who he was. So she became fully grounded in the sciences and didn't care about anything that was not measurable, verifiable. She married a doctor. She made all these things that you would, really
Yeah.
structure thing, totally opposite of who he was. But it was made sense because it was her way of um, dealing with the loss of her mother and the loss of her father at the same time.
Yeah. When you speak about forgotten knowledge, do you believe that it's purposefully suppressed for a reason? And what would that reason be in your speech?
Well, I will say that I that's a big theme across a lot of my writings, and there is I believe that knowledge is forgotten and knowledge is suppressed. I mean, we know it just looking through historical records and seeing inventions and things that have been developed that have been, suppressed. So there is the idea that the change, especially if it has an economic impact to certain, powers in the world, are going to be suppressed because they don't want that.
You're talking
And
about like energy?
yeah, energy, I mean, all types of things. But knowledge about who we are and what we are. And, I always tell a story that I've heard years ago about, people look at ourselves as human beings as we're just biological systems that just,
Mm,
we're random. We're basically, we got lucky. We got lucky at the dice roll and we became this living civilization.
yeah.
And when you look at the math behind that and what the odds are, it becomes absurd.
Yeah.
The metaphor I use is the Rubik's cube. And if you mixed the Rubik's cube up, you gave it to a blind person, and you asked that person to make a random move every second. Um, how long would it take to, by chance, basically get the Rubik's cube back to a set state?
Yeah. Good luck with that.
People would tell me, oh, maybe 20 minutes or an hour, a year, 10 years. The
Yeah.
answer actually is about 2.5 trillion years
Yeah.
to get the cube back to its state. And since the universe itself is only about 15 billion years old, it's about 150 universal lifetimes for that cube to get back to state. Now, I ask everybody, well, is the Rubik's cube more complex than a single cell? The answer is no. A single
Yeah.
cell is vastly more complex in its how it works in its systems. And so I say, what are the odds then of a cell and developing and a human being developing? It's even worse than the Rubik's cube being solved by somebody who's blind. And yet here we are. And then I give them one extra thing. I say, what if we change that experiment just in one very simple way? And every time the person made a move, we said hot or cold. That's it. We just gave them a binary piece of data and just said, you're getting better or you're getting worse. How long would it take them to solve the Rubik's cube? About 20, 30 minutes. So with a single piece of information, a feedback information from one thing to the other, that Rubik's cube goes from being not solvable in any, version of our reality to not only solvable, but common. Life now becomes common and fairly easy to see, which is what is matching what we're finding in the universe as far as these Goldilocks planets that could possibly hold life, viruses and smaller bacteria we find in different, like in Mars. So I feel like, and this is something that's talked about by several scientists, but this idea of feedback between, what the universe is trying and how it's kind of working is there in some way, because it makes sense that patterns that we see in nature repeat themselves. If they work, they repeat. We see them in multiple places. And I think that this is one of those things that we forget about ourselves, is that we are extraordinary. We are extraordinary, and we are not an accident. We are something very special, and our memory and who we are and what we are is something that is our birthright. We just have to work to remember it.
I really like that. Isn't that like the Fibonacci in nature where?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Many areas of the Fibonacci.
Right?
Plants, I mean, all types, shells, all types of things. Yes. Yeah.
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 Yeah, that alone is kind of mind blowing when you
Mind
think
blowing.
about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's one of those things where in science, to me, it's, these are the awe moments. You look at these things and you're like, wow, this should really move us to look at things differently. But it doesn't, because we just tend to dismiss it as coincidence, random act. And that's really, I think we're doing ourselves and life a disservice.
But isn't that cognitive dissonance in and of itself where
It
people
is. And
just,
yeah, in many ways it can be. Yeah. Yeah. People can't accept that idea and they just refuse to acknowledge it. Our brains have this default mode network, and we're kind of used to doing things a certain way and seeing things a certain way, and our brains tend to keep us in that particular that lane and not let us go too far out of it
you
unless
know,
we
it's,
push.
yeah, right. It's so interesting because it's like once you see it, there's no going back. It's kind of
No
like
going
Neo
back.
with the red pill and the blue pill, right?
Right.
It's like once you take that pill, that red pill, there's no going back. And then you really like that spark that it changes everything the way you perceive the world. Like,
Everything.
I
Yes.
can't look at the news anymore because
Nope.
it's all just propaganda
Yep.
fake, all of
Yep.
it from
It
both
is.
sides,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
both sides.
For both sides. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's just pitting side against
Right.
side. And I mean, I like to see if the world blew up, so I'll put the news on a little bit.
Yes. That's
I
always
want
nice.
yeah, just check out, see who blew up who.
Yep.
But, other than that, I just have zero patience for it because, like I said, once you start to see the truth in things, and there are truths in things,
There are.
because some people say, "Oh, there's no one truth." No, there are truths in things. And once you see them, there's just no going back.
And
There's
the
the
biggest
world.
truth we can find is we look within. When we look within, we will see things and find things that are just amazing. Muggle news. Yes, I
Absolutely.
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, natural laws.
Yep.
Liebercast was a bonsoir, dear. He was a guest on my show once, and we talked about shadow work and stuff. It
Yep.
was great. Love it. Speaking of shadow work, I mean, you've obviously are a very spiritual, educated human. Do you still feel that there are a lot of things, hi Mort, that you need to work on via shadow work for
Oh,
yourself?
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think when you come into this life, um, just going through the process of living and dealing with folks, you would kind of pick up some baggage along the way.
Yeah, you do.
And the beautiful thing about the working on shadow work is you're aware of it. So you
Yeah.
know it's there. You can watch it when it flares. You can work on trying to get past it. And whenever you can kind of work through something, it's a wonderful victory for because you basically have taken that programming that we all get stuck with when we're young, and we've kind of removed it. And that's powerful stuff there.
Mm. Yeah, because trauma,
Oh
whether it's
yeah.
childhood or
We all
adult
have
trauma.
that. We all have it.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, yeah. I don't think there's a living soul on the planet without it in some form or the next. And the thing that I think we need to forgive ourselves for and talk about remembering, is that we're human.
Mhm.
I mean, we are living a spiritual existence, but we're human. Bottom line, we're just a bunch of meat bags when it comes down to it. And I think we need to forgive ourselves for
Yeah.
a lot of the things that we do and say.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's knowing them and saying, "Wow, I need to learn from that." Like
Yeah.
that's the whole game, right?
That's the
Don't you
whole
think?
game, right? That's it.
Yeah, that's the
Just
whole game.
having that metacognition to be aware of
Yes,
what's going on in
metacognition.
your life being able to see yourself and take a step back, even when you're reacting to
Yes,
something that, why am I reacting to this?
right.
Okay to react, but at least you're aware of it and you can figure out, okay, let's peel some layers and see where this is going.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I don't, like I said, I think to the day I leave this planet, I will be making so.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's part of our evolution too, to be
Yes.
able to do that. Does religion play a part in your life, uh, or has it ever at any point?
Yeah, I was raised Methodist, got into, but then we became Episcopal. For a while there, I was a Wiccan high priest. So religious and religious ideas have contributed to my life in a significant way. I consider myself right now to be more of a Taoist Buddhist as far as spirituality goes, and
Mm,
it's really my own personal flavor. I mean, I feel like all of us have, when we walk the earth enough, we kind of developed our own sense of what feels right and what doesn't, and it
absolutely.
changes. I mean, one of the biggest things that I'm a big proponent of is never let a worldview become rigid. I mean, you have to be able to basically be okay with questioning your worldview and questioning everything you believe and being
Yeah.
willing to change it, even if it seems a little bit painful or unpleasant.
Um, um, I'm interested to hear a little more about the Wiccan thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I've spoken to a lot of Wiccans, pagans, witches, and it's so interesting because I always say they get and got such a bad rap. Right away they attach the word Satanism to them,
Yeah,
and it's the furthest thing from the
it
truth.
is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
They don't even believe in Satan. So it's I got into it when I was married to my first wife many, many years ago. She was already part of Wicca, and we decided to create a coven. And so, I went through the process with her. I've already studied a lot of different philosophies and magical systems, so it wasn't a big stretch for me. But it was a different type of perspective. I mean, this is a
Mm.
much more natural, uh, kind of religious kind of idea. And so it went through this process. We ran the coven for about 15 years.
Oh, wow.
We trained people, we would basically meet 2 or 3 days a week with classes for different degrees within Wicca. I wrote a lot of the classes because I had a lot of background in certain things. She wrote a lot from her background, and we just enjoyed that process of creating this working group, and it was wonderful. I had a great experience with it, but I also felt that it was people started looking to us for answers, and
Mm,
I'm a big proponent of, I can tell you my perspective from my
right,
experience, but
right.
ultimately those answers got to come from you,
Yeah,
and from within. And that sometimes, that people don't like to hear that sometimes.
yeah. Well, yeah, people want the easy way out. They wanna be
Yes.
told what to believe,
Right.
and that's part of the problem right there, instead of digging their heels into the dirt and kind of figuring life
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
They wanna read a book and get the answers,
Right.
and there are no answers in any book. I
Nope.
mean,
Nope.
no. People
Just different ways of thinking or
right,
trying something on. It's like sets of clothes. Let me just try this hat on and see how that feels for a while.
exactly, yeah. So what made you step out of that? What was it, that whole reason that
That
you
was
stepped
part
away
of it, but
from?
we ended up moving, across
Oh,
country, so that kinda really put a damper on things, and we ended up shutting it down. And then over time, she and I just ended up splitting. So, and then I kind of was gravitating more towards, spirituality from, a science and mystical perspective, Taoist Buddhism. That's why I came to Asheville. I ended up wanting to go to acupuncture school here and, learning
mm.
about that system. So it was just kind of a better fit for me just to kind of step away from it. Still have a
Oh,
ton of
nice.
respect for it, love it, I have, but it
Yeah.
wasn't for me. It wasn't my path anymore.
Right, yeah, and it changes. Our paths change all the time,
Right.
so, yeah, it's a beautiful thing actually when it does that. Are you doing acupuncture now? Is that something you
No,
practice
no,
or?
I do energy healing right now and some work. I work with a local, wellness center and do some work through them. But for the most part, my big focus is writing. I
Yeah, it
do
takes
a
a
lot
lot
of
of time.
writing. I write short stories. I put more meat into my short stories because, I could do that. And then, but all my books, my short stories all take place in the same basic universe. So I'll write sometimes origin stories of things that take place in my books, but you don't really know the origin story of them, but I write it in a short story. So I keep
Yeah,
all that stuff together.
a short story is still popular in terms of consumers? Are they where do they get that kind of material from? Just the internet or?
Yeah, they can get it from the internet. And then, I mean, I can write, if I write a little bit bigger one, I'll put a novella together, but I usually just give those away because for the most part, I'm just trying to provide more depth in the universe that I'm writing about. And, I've written probably 3, 4, maybe 500 pages of background lore from my books. I mean, I created an Atlantean language from scratch. So
Oh
it's
my
all of these
goodness.
things are part of this. So it's like it's a very deep and complex system, and it's only beginning to unfold. People are just seeing the kind of the tip of the iceberg right now, but it gets much deeper as you go forward with it.
Mm. How does ancient history play into this whole thing for you?
I
Tartaria?
love ancient history. So,
Yeah.
so I'm a big believer that we know very little about our ancient history. And so I just let my imagination download, whatever you want to call it, kind of
Mm.
move me to write about what I think could be in some universe, someplace, one possible ancient history of our planet. Because
Wow.
to me, it's, they're all possible. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of the whole Tartaria thing? I mean, there's so much of that on the internet now talking about, the technology that came from there. And did that play into any of your writings as
it,
well? Or
it didn't. No, that did not. Most of my stuff came from, again, Casey
Egypt?
talked about Atlantis. And so I had a lot of, I mean, you know, 50 years ago was reading about Atlantis and developed in my own brain kind of what I felt that looked like. And I read a lot of ancient books on Egypt. I read a wonderful book which I really stuck with me, which was the book Initiation by Elizabeth Hayes, and
Yeah.
that story was a powerful one for me. So it just was, you know, those kind of things kind of fed my viewpoint of what the ancient world looked like or what it was.
Mm.
And I'm a big believer in resonance and frequency, and
Oh,
those are
yeah.
always going to be pretty big part of my lore in my books.
Do you do any sound therapies as well? Yeah.
Very much, yes, very much.
Because
Yeah,
that plays right into the healing thing
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
with bowls and bells and
Yep. Tuning forks, bowls, bells,
tuning
and
forks.
and
Yeah.
technology have beautiful devices today that produce very pure sounds. But my favorite is still gongs. Beautiful gongs are still
Yeah.
some of the
Gongs are
best
nice.
sounds. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What about the frequency hertz of music? Does that play? Because what is it? Five? What's the
Well,
number?
it's 440 is what we
440
most
and
music today, but that's
yeah.
considered to be a little bit of an off frequency. But I'll use
Mm,
frequencies, either some of the solfeggio frequencies or certain other
mm,
frequencies just to compensate, and they provide wonderful support too. If you're having a bad day, do a 396. If you're having a day of things are gotten you a little bit concerned or anxious or fearful. If you need something to kind of help internally with your healing, and just a 528 that kind of help you
yeah.
there. So these are just different
That's the
frequencies to
one.
help. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 528 is the one that, like, I see a lot of talk about
Yes.
that in terms of, like, actually changing your vibration. Like, you
Yeah.
can listen to well, look at what music does for us.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and again, that plays both into think of how you can hear a song and it can put you in this dark place immediately, maybe
Yep.
something that took place in your past. And,
Yep.
and it's interesting because it almost feels good. It almost feels like a good pain while you're listening to the song. And
Yep.
then when it's over, you kind of just move like right
Yep.
out of it. It's it's
Right.
it's like a healing modality,
It can
really.
be, yeah, and it
Yeah,
could just and the opposite could happen too. You could be in a really bad, grumpy mood and listen to a certain piece of music and
exactly.
feel totally transformed in 3
Yeah, it
minutes.
uplifts you. Yeah. Well, and I think too that all comes from words are really magic,
Yes, they
hence
are.
spelling, right?
Yep,
The
yep,
spelling.
yep,
Sometimes they put these things like right in our faces and we
yep.
just don't we
We don't
just
see them,
refuse.
yeah. They hide in
Right.
plain sight. I mean, they just hide in plain sight.
Exactly. Like movies, they
Yep,
tell us the truth about so much,
yep,
and there's so many people. It's so interesting how, like you can watch a movie and see it in a completely different light than the person you're sitting next to. And then you look
Absolutely.
at that
Yeah.
person and you're like,
How could
you
you not
didn't
see
get
that?
that?
Yeah. How could you not see that? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's amazing things in movies, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to write, was because, you know, when a person's reading a book that's a nonfiction book, their brain is really wired to filter everything coming in, and they're thinking strongly about every little phrase and idea. But when they're reading a book, their imagination, they're kind of visualizing what this is going on in the story. They're kind of reliving it. It removes that conscious filter, and
Yeah.
ideas can get in there that normally wouldn't get in there. And those ideas can then, plant a seed for people. So I have
Absolutely.
found people who read my book to be, I never thought of it that way. That's a unique way of looking at it, and that's really what I want to do, is just have people who are open to it but haven't quite can't get past that default mode network of that brain, their analytical brain, and just say, what if the world looked just like this?
Mm.
What would that
And
mean?
you think reading propels a person into that universe, right?
Stories,
Faster
yes,
than,
can do
yeah.
that. Stories do that.
Stories, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we're creatures, that came from campfire
absolutely.
stories.
Yep, yep.
Um, and it's so interesting because I remember learning, back in school, in college, that reading is such an unnatural thing for humans. If you think about it, it really is. It's a learned, disciplined,
Yep.
what would you call it? What would you call reading? A tool or a
It's a tool.
skill?
Yeah, it's a tool, and it
Right.
actually is. There's a guy on the internet who did a beautiful um, discussion about the how we as human beings have been altered by how we've consumed media and how we consumed information. When we
Gotcha.
were younger, back in 1,000 years ago, it was all word of mouth. It was sitting around a campfire telling stories. And when the printing press was invented and we started reading, it actually took a while for people to read because it was not something
Yeah,
they were used to doing. To
yeah,
stop and sit still and read and observe and absorb and
right.
understand was a learned response that took time. And now, because of things like social media and video,
Yeah,
um, uh, reading has become less prominent, and it's harder for people to sit down and read. Hence, the reason why audiobooks are so popular,
right.
um, because they're being trained to be more short, small bites of information as
Yes, 8
opposed to
seconds.
focusing for a while. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's sad that the attention span is under 8 seconds. And
yeah,
and I mean, some people hate to read. Like, I
yeah,
I love to read.
yeah,
I live to read. Um, but, and I respect that, whatever
yeah.
floats your boat.
Oh yeah,
Why do
yeah.
you think some people don't evolve? Do you think that I'm kinda hopping all over it. Why do you think that some people don't evolve spiritually as fast as other people? Why do you think that some people do you think it has to do with, just their consciousness is not as mature or as developed as someone else's? Like, you would think we would all be on the same plane as humans, but we're not.
We're not. And I would say that I don't look at it that way. The way I look at it is, if I'm a senior in high school, would I measure myself against a sixth grader and their ability to learn?
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And so I don't. I can't measure myself against that. And
Yeah,
so I would not assume, I don't assume that everybody here is at the same level who, for whatever reason. And so I try not to get to think about that way.
do you think that just has to do with reincarnation? That,
Could be
you're just
reincarnation.
an
It could
older.
be, it could just be
Yeah.
that sometimes, some of us, I used to tell the story of the idea that, life and existence is walking down this beautiful path that has this incredibly golden light at the very end of this path. And in between, on both sides, there are these little clearings. And these clearings have lots of fun little things in them, And so if I stick on that path and just walk straight through, I might, go ahead and achieve Buddhahood in, 4
Yeah.
lifetimes. But most of us are like kids, and when we see things going on inside, we kind of go off into to these clearings and we hang
Yeah,
around and play in there for a while because they're fun. And we can play in there
exactly.
for years. We can play there for decades, even lifetimes.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
eventually we come back out to the path. But is there is there any rush? Is there any? We're not really being. There's no time frame. There's no. We have to be there by a certain time.
right.
It's like, so is the person who goes there straight away any better off than the person who's experienced all that fun along the way? And I
That's
don't know
such
the
a
answer to that.
great way to look at it. I love that analogy too. But yet, we always want to push people, like you were
Yes.
talking. We always want to push people over that hump and like try to get them to see. And I know I do that with my kids,
Yep.
as adult as they are.
Yep.
Like I want to shake them and say, "How come you don't see this?"
Yeah, come
And
on,
Benno,
get out of the clearing.
right?
Let's go. Yeah, that's right.
Benno made an interesting comment. What if the sixth grader is young Sheldon? And that's true.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever see some of these geniuses and you
Oh yeah,
just
I've
are
met
in
some of them. They're amazing, and I think that
what?
they're phenomenal. And
Yeah,
I feel like that's a sign that we as a species or as a planet are allowing ourselves to have some of these, these really amazing beings to come into us.
amazing.
It's wonderful. Yeah. It's good
Yeah.
news for us, I think, because it's, you probably wouldn't see very many of them 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, this is true. Plus, we have social media today and the internet, which gives us more
Yes.
opportunity. What do you think of the concept of like the multiverse? Did that play into your book, and explain if so?
It didn't really play into it's not playing into the book yet. And I don't know if it will. I do believe in the multiverse, and I do believe that we have multiple timelines of expression that we can maneuver between. That part will probably play into the later stories because the later stories get a little bit more intense. But the multiverse to me is if the universe if the reason we exist is the universe wants to experience itself through a different set of eyes, and it doesn't like to not experience in all possibilities, superposition being a
Mm,
fundamental component, then it has to have a multiverse because that's the only way to have Carol Ann in a million different particular perspectives. Because if your
mm,
life even changes a little bit at the beginning, it changes who you are, and that changes your perspective and how you observe the universe. And
absolutely.
so it just makes sense to me that the multiverse would be the way that the universe can experience itself in a variety of ways from the same individual stream of consciousness, the same individual being.
Mm,
That makes sense. Yeah.
profound. It does. It's so interesting because one of the messages or downloads that I've gotten a lot since the pandemic is like, just be the observer, be
Be
the
the observer.
observer,
Yeah.
right? But if we're the observer and quantum physics tells us that the mere act of observing changes the outcome, that baffles my brain. Like,
This is where
I don't think,
superposition comes into play because we have to remember, and this is something that human beings we are not good at. We have to remember that when we observe and we want and visualize something, we're collapsing all those possibilities into one
yes,
thing. Okay.
right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But we feel like we only have one thing the entire time. There's only one option. This is the only thing that can happen to me. Like, for example, I'm not lovable, so no one's going to love me. That's the only
Mm,
reality that we have in our brain. And therefore, it becomes reality because that's what we believe. But instead, if we just change it, we reframe it and just say, what if everybody loves me in some way?
mm.
It totally changes everything around, and it changes what you're collapsing and what you're observing and what you're going to
Gosh,
live.
that's so true. I love that. It's so interesting because I remember learning like my very first computer programming. We learned a code that was if then.
Mhm.
So if you do this, then this happens kind of thing, right?
Yep.
Do you think that the world is binary though, where, it is zeros and ones? Because that's what we're
Mhm.
told, that like everything is based off of
Well, it's a
zeros and
duality. It's
ones.
a dualistic idea. Is that is it's either this or that. It's
Yeah.
me or not me. Good or evil. Rich or poor. All these different dualistic
Yeah.
kind of ideas. And the thing about dualism is that we it's again limiting the possibilities to down just to two.
Yes.
And those are not this. That's just not the way the universe works. And when I created this uplift model, which it's the word uplift, but each letter means something different. So it's unity, presence, love, and the T is transformation. But
Mm.
the remaining letters are if. And that to me is the sacred if, because that means it's the if of possibilities. It's the if of infinite possibilities. And anything is possible until you make that selection, until you choose and you settle on something. My mother recently passed, and she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Oh, I'm so
And
sorry.
it was a diagnosis that was in a stage where it was definitely something she could work through. But she chose to immediately take that diagnosis and say, well, according to the internet, I've only got 4 months to live. Even though that
Ah,
wasn't the case. That was not the case. And by God, she died almost 4 months to the day, even though clinically she had no reason she could have lived for 2 years. Thank you. So, and this is a choice that she made. And I love my mother, but she still made a choice. And this is something that I try to get people to understand is
yeah.
we have more choices than what we think. And we cannot let ourselves get bogged down into a choice that's been, inflicted on us, or a choice that's being limited by society to us. It's we are just have infinite choices, and we have to be okay with accepting those. We have to feel worthy of allowing for infinity to manifest in our lives.
I mean, maybe that, and just to kind of ruminate a little bit about your mom's choice, maybe that was just her soul contract, so to say,
Could
right?
be, yeah, it could very well be. She's had a really tough life, and so she never really felt that anything ever went her way. So it didn't surprise me that she got on
Yeah.
that train when she found out. But and this is something that we as human beings, as we had tough lives or tough things happen to us, we tend to really limit what's possible for us.
Yeah. Because
And
we see the whole world that way.
we see the whole world that way. And it's it's one of those most amazing things is that the it's simply one choice away from changing everything. It's just
Yeah.
one choice away. And that's something that is it sounds crazy, it sounds ridiculous, but it's so true because I've done it myself many times, and it's just
Yeah.
one choice away from shifting everything.
Gosh, that's so true. Tell us about manifesting. What do we always hear and I think The Secret, well, of course, the book The
Right.
Secret started this whole
Yep.
manifesting thing.
Yeah.
And everybody thought that they could just think things into reality, right?
Yes, yes. And that's too, here's the thing that people forget. And from a neuroscience perspective, our conscious brain is like 5% of our total brain power.
Yeah, yeah,
Our
yeah.
subconscious brain is 95% of our total brain power.
Right.
So you can sit there and think you're the king of Siam consciously, but if you believe you're a pauper on the street subconsciously, what do you think is going to win?
Right.
And so we have got ourselves caught up in this idea of positive thinking, which is nothing wrong with that. It's a part of it.
Yeah.
But we have got to dig into ourselves and figure out what's holding us back, because I guarantee you most people are deathly afraid of success. They don't fear
Yes.
failure.
So
They are
true.
deathly afraid of success. Myself included.
So
I've had the same problem.
what do you think that is that, some of us just want success so deeply, but yet we're petrified of it. Is it the failure of, so is it failing, bottom line that we're afraid of?
I think it's actually more the responsibility of being successful. What does that mean to me? What is that going to do to me? it's a commitment too, in a way.
Yes,
When
it
you're
is a big
successful,
commitment.
it's a commitment. And
It's a
so there's
huge
a lot of folks who are afraid of that commitment. And I think that's one of those things that, and everybody's going to be different. They have to kind of go into themselves and figure out what it is. But until your conscious mind is in alignment with your subconscious mind, you're not going to manifest, not easily anyway. Or you'll manifest, listen to your subconscious mind, because that's what you expect. Deep down, that's what you expect.
It's so interesting that you're talking about the subconscious. I was talking to some folks just yesterday about it, and they claim, and one of the persons is a contactee. She's got a whole life story based on that with ET and whatnot. And she claims, because I was giving her the analogy of how we're taught that the conscious mind is this iceberg.
Mhm.
And, there's like one third of it that we see, and the
Yep.
whole rest of it
Yep.
is the subconscious. And she's like, no, there's no subconscious. It's really all of consciousness. And there's no subconsciousness. It's that we have to like tap into it. Everybody's got different theories about the subconscious. What about you?
I think I mean, I understand where she's coming from on that. The subconscious, though, I consider it those things that we're not aware of. So you could give it
Yeah.
whatever name you want to. It could be part of
Right.
the conscious mind, but we're unaware of those things. And if we're aware of them, we tend to ignore them because they're not pleasant, to think about. So we just have to be aware of the fact that we have things that we think about ourselves, about the world, about each other, that we are not aware of. And those are powerful things because when every part of our body, when we're awake, we think, oh yeah, we're wonderful. But really and truly, if you look underneath the surface, that's not what we think at all. And so wherever that resides, we can debate that. That's not it. But to me, it's still there. We are not feeling that way, not truly. And to try to say that consciously we can simply fix that, I think is the reason why a lot of folks fail in manifesting, because we're telling them just think this way and everything will be fine.
Yes.
And never bother going within and figuring out what's holding them back. And that's simply
So,
important.
absolutely. So, consciousness, like here's that iceberg, right? And there's the
Yep.
tiny little piece of it,
Yep.
our conscious mind, and therein resides things like short-term memory,
Yep.
logical
Yep.
reasoning, and all of those things. And then the subconscious mind, which is the big, huge 95% of that, right?
Yep.
So all of the things, Bill, emotional reactions, our
Yep.
long-term memory, habits and addictions, fight or flight response,
Yep.
all these things that are subconscious, right? How do you think we can integrate them? Because that's a tough one.
Meditation is a thing I've always recommended for people, and it's one of those things that everybody hates.
Yeah.
And I've heard every excuse under the sun, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things everybody hates because our society, our bodies are trained to move and do. We're human doings. We're not human beings, and we're just trying to do, and to sit for an hour, even 20 minutes, just 20 minutes, to sit for 20 minutes and actually face parts of yourself you don't want to face is not an easy thing to do. However, I will tell everybody that ever asks me, if you can do it, make it a habit, you will find yourself changing in ways you have no idea. It is a profound change in somebody if you do it for a year. And I mean, I've done it. I've been meditating now for almost 40 years. And I can tell you that it makes an amazing difference in my ability to handle things that go on in the world, things that go on with myself and my life. And it always allows me to come back to center and to a positive perspective on things much faster than if I wasn't doing that. And when I want to manifest, I work to align both my inner and my outer, my sub and my conscious mind. And then when I do that, I can manifest. I can manifest a new job. I can whatever I want, I can manifest. But if I'm not in alignment, nothing happens.
So explain what an alignment means.
My
to folks.
subconscious, if I'm saying to myself, I want this amazing, let's go relationships. Those are fun. I want this amazing person. I want to meet an amazing person. But if deep down inside, I don't feel worthy of being in a
Gotcha.
relationship with somebody who loves me for who I am, for what I am, then how am I going to ever meet somebody in the outer world there if I don't believe it's possible in the inner world?
Yeah, that's a great example.
And we just have to figure out, and it's not, I'm not saying it's easy. Please understand, I'm not saying it's easy. It's work, but it's work that can be fun and joyful. And it's one of those things that you can't go into it in 2 weeks and say, well, damn it, nothing's changed for me, I'm going to quit. No, this is one of those things that is a lifelong lifestyle that
It
you have
is.
to get into that habit. And I promise you, if you do, your life will change.
And so much goes along with that too. I think people, need to do a lot of shadow work every day and go to therapy maybe. I mean, whatever works for you to get
Whatever works
past
for
the
them. Yep,
trauma,
yep,
whatever works,
yep.
you do. And Carrie said here, and it's interesting because she said, better yet, stare at yourself in the mirror and talk to your soul through your eyes. That's a tough thing to do.
It is.
I've done that a few times
Yep,
when I've
yep,
gotten like angry at myself. I
yep,
would I would do that little, thing
yep,
where I talk to myself in the mirror, and looking at your own eyes is like it's not the easiest thing
yep.
to
Do that,
do.
yeah, do that in the mirror and tell yourself 10 times that you love yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, the people will sit there, that's easy. No, it's not. Look in the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself and feel it. And that's a powerful thing. But yes, that's incredible right there. Just any kind of work where you're looking at yourself and seeing yourself it puts things right in front of you, and you'll see all the flaws, you'll remember all the things you don't like about yourself, and that's where you have to kind of get over. Yeah.
Absolutely. Benno, you do like looking at yourself. You have to tell yourself, look in the mirror. Tell
Yep.
yourself you love looking at yourself. Don't use
Yep.
those negative words.
Yep.
It's so interesting because what's that doctor's name? Emoto, I think, who
Yeah.
did the
Yep.
water.
Emoto. Yep. Yep.
Emoto. That
Yep.
alone should be taught in every school. Like, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. Absolutely. And the work of Veda Austin, who's kind of piggybacked off of his stuff, and what she's shown in water has just
I
been
saw that too. The
phenomenal.
shapes. Is she the
Yeah,
one
the
that
shapes
showed
in
the
the ice.
That's
Yep. Yep.
mind
Yep,
blowing.
yep, yep, and it tells you
Mind
just how
blowing.
powerful our emotions are, and how powerful words are, and how energy is in everything.
It is. And from the energy, Bill, the vibration of that is how do we benefit by so like you walk in a room and you meet people and you can either shut down, right?
Yep,
Or
yep,
you can emit that energy and
yep,
vibrate to other people the positive, beautiful
yep,
things about yourself.
yep.
So again, it's a choice, right? That you're
It's a choice.
making
Yep,
at
it's a
that
choice.
moment. Yeah.
Yep.
How do you work with vibration? Obviously, we know you use sound. Other way you use meditation. I mean, I love to give folks good tips out there on how to do that.
Sounds is really good. Music is great.
Yeah.
So for me, if my vibration is falling for whatever reason, I will listen to music, listen to sounds, watch comedies that
Oh,
I
that's
really love.
great. That changes
Laugh, because
everything.
laughter is really powerful.
Yeah.
It does amazing. Just smiling does amazing things for your demeanor and your mood. Scent is great. If you have incense or essential oils,
Oh,
those are powerful
yeah.
as well. Very powerful to do. So, and I'm a big fan of shotgunning it. So, if you're stuck in the doldrums, throw everything you can at it. Everything
Yeah.
you can at it. And I guarantee you that, one or two of these things will get you out of it. And for me, if I get into a bad space for whatever reason, I can usually get out of it within a couple hours by just doing that stuff. And it's the thing about it is, if something bad happens in our lives, like you lose a job, you have an option here. You lost a job, you start stressing about money, you start stressing about finding another job and how much time you got to
Mm.
do that to do this job. And that just brings your energy down. It brings your energy down.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so
Instantly.
now the process, not only because it's the same process, whether you're, however you feel about it, it's the same process. But if that now the process is one that you're feeling constraint and lack. Now, what happens if you change that and said, you know what, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. This job was not serving me. I have the possibility of
Right.
finding the most incredible job right now. It's going to be perfect for me. It's going to be fun to find this job. It's going to be fun to interview. Is the process different? No, the process is still the same that you have to go through. But
Yeah.
now you're going through that process with a much better energy, a much more open energy, and a much easier energy to manifest something wonderful for yourself. And
Gosh,
so,
that's
again,
so
a
true.
choice. It's a
It
choice.
really is. It's funny because, like, I'm a clean freak. I can't stand cleaning, but I'm a clean freak, but I can't stand it. We
Yes.
have a love-hate relationship. So, like, I was, I would get up and go, "Oh god, I can't stand it. I gotta clean." And I read once that they said, instead of saying that, say, "Hey, I get to clean today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am so lucky I actually get to clean." And it really does change
Yeah.
your headspace. It
It does.
truly
Totally changes your
does.
headspace. And I'm not
It
saying you're
really
gonna be successful every time. Don't beat
right.
yourself up if some days you just can't seem to manage that, but try every time, because the days you do, it'll
Absolutely.
just keep telling you and reinforcing, "You know what? If I just shift my mindset, it changes everything."
Gosh, that's so true. What do you hope what's your greatest hope out of writing this book and your series of books to give to folks? What's the greatest hope that you, other than book sales? I mean, we all want book sales, right?
Sure.
That's a given.
That's
Other
yeah.
than that,
I mean, to me, the books are it's part of my byline. It's I want to entertain and inspire. So I wanted
mm,
people to enjoy the story, but just for the story's sake. If you just love the story, it was just a fun thriller to kind of participate in. But I also want the story to inspire in some way. It could be anything. It could be small, it could be big, it doesn't matter. It's just, can it shift your mindset a little bit? Could it make you question something or being open to something new? That's all I want. One of my favorite movies, and this is, I mean, this is, people look at it probably to be silly, but one of my favorite movies is the animated movie Moana. And the reason
huh,
I love that movie is because it has such powerful undertones of connection and, the whole spiral, and the idea that the heart is what makes us, without our heart, we become this monster. And it's a beautiful metaphor for the human condition. And it's a story. And people can watch that story and just love the story, or they can watch
yeah,
the story and see some of the other aspects of it and like, whoa, that's kind of a neat little thing. And that's kind of
mm,
what I want from my books is enjoy it, love it, and have a great time with it. But maybe once in a while you might see something that's like, oh wow, I never thought of that.
that's so true. One of the other sadder things about, like, you watch an inspiring movie or you read a book that 2, 3 days pass, and then we just tend to go back,
Yep.
to our same old
Yep.
routines and same old habits. And, what do you think is something that folks can do to fight against, like, should they journal, maybe write that down, put Post-it notes up? Like, how do you make it stick, Bill?
It's different for every person. I would say that, first of all, don't be hard on yourself,
Mhm.
and don't make something, like, pick something really hard. Like, I'm going to meditate an hour every day. I guarantee you, if you haven't done it before, you're going to do it for a couple of days and then something's going to come up, because if we're not used to doing something, our physical bodies are going to rebel against us doing anything different. It will
Right.
just rebel. So find something and do it and make it small and do it and stick with it. Make it a commitment to do it. Whether it's getting up in the morning and looking in the mirror and saying, I love you 3 times. That's it. Just do that. If it is meditating, maybe it's just meditating for 5 minutes,
Right.
a day, 5 minutes. So I'm a big proponent of finding one change, making it a small change, and really
Mm.
making it part of your life and then increasing from there.
Oh, I love that. That's great advice. Now, do you teach any courses? I mean, I'm on, let's do this. Let's show folks your website. I always like to do that with my guests because a lot of work goes into websites, and I think that it's a nice thing to tout, right? So
Yep.
you have a mailing list, which by golly, I'm going to make sure I join that. Um, do you have any courses or anything that you plan or have here, or is this just a place for your books?
I don't do courses. I do them locally here. So I teach a lot of folks locally here, and I'll have like events. But I tried to do courses, and it wasn't working the way I wanted it to. So I write, and then I go ahead and do my teachings here locally. I do once in a while. We'll do online teaching, so I'll do a class online versus one in person. It just
Oh,
depends
nice.
upon the demand for it. Yeah.
Nice. Now we could get your books on Amazon as well, right?
You
I
can, yeah,
mean,
you can get them on Amazon. You can get them through my website. Either works.
I have to say this is a very reasonable price too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
which is nice that of
yeah. And
course
that
we have
bundle's good through 2 more days.
so it's a special going on right now.
Yeah, special going on right now. Yeah,
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, and of course we have the banner running across the screen so folks
I
can
appreciate that. Thank you.
find you, of course, at billcombs.com. So what's you have this third book coming out now or that you're working on? What's the
I'm actually
premise
working
of
on
the
3
book?
different books right now. I've
Wow, how
got
do you do that?
I bounce back and forth between them, and it's actually kind of great because if I get tired of working on one, I can work on another one. But I've
So what do
got
you do? Do you outline
yes,
like the
outline everything.
chapter?
Yeah. Yep. Outline it. I outline this, the outline for the chapter, the scenes outlines are done separately. So what I have book 3 of the Ascension Chronicles, which is going to come out probably around mid-year, give
Mm,
or take a month. But I want to get book 1 of my 21st Century Merlin series out because that's and then both of these series are connected together. You'll see characters from both in each series, and that's why. And they are very different story arcs, but they're related story arcs.
mm.
And so I put them together for that. And Merlin is sort of like my uh, kind of acknowledging my own life when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and being a teenager and loving metaphysics and studying this stuff, at 14, 15, 16 in
Yeah.
school, not really popular as a result of that.
No, no, definitely not.
So this 16-year-old character is sort of like
Yeah.
my homage to myself when I
Yeah.
was.
I think all writers do that in one way,
Yep,
one facet or another.
yep.
How are your like what's your group like of people? Are they like you? Do you hang out with like-minded people like in the
I do.
same?
Yeah,
Yeah, I figured that.
I do. I
How do
mean,
you
most of
even
the people here
find
are
them?
they're either into wellness or quantum physics or metaphysics or any number of things, and so we have a great community here. I've built up over the years, and I get about 40 to 50 people sometimes to show up for events,
Oh,
and just
wow.
and I don't charge for the events here because it's just donation. I love doing this and putting that out there for
Mm,
people to see. Um,
mm.
because it's just to me is as part of it that I want to kind of get that information out there because I mean I've seen people who will go through one of my events and hear something that's to you and I might be very like, oh yeah, we've known that for decades, but they did not. And when they realized it and it kind of flipped that switch in them, everything shifted for them. And that's
Wow.
what I live for is that one little thing that can happen for somebody and
So
sets them on a path.
you're really paying it forward,
Yes.
yeah. So these events, are they mostly healing events or are they
Combinations.
consciousness
Yeah, they're
uh,
combinations. Yeah. I do healing events. I do events for talking about I just do a basic quantum physics primer just to show people what it is and
oh,
what
nice.
it, how to what to experience with it, why it's important from a metaphysical perspective. I go over the human biofield and what that looks like and why that's important. And I also talk about things that, science is really big about telling us what we know. There's a lot that we don't know and they don't really talk about. And I make sure I tell them, we don't know this. We just don't know.
It's so interesting. You talking about the human biofield, right?
Yep.
There's some people, particularly one girl that I've been listening to, and she's been talking about how they hacked into they right, we always say they, I think folks know what we mean,
Yep.
how they hacked into the human biofield. And she said if you type in 802.15.6, you can see that there's an actual standard for short range, ultra low powered wireless communication designed for wireless body area networks, which are what, wavebands, W bands, however
Yep.
you
Yep.
pronounce them. What's your take on that whole thing?
I mean, I know that there is, if science begins to look at subtle fields and subtle energies, which they are starting to do, they could, use these things. But at the same time, there are, you know, we are the technology. I know
We
Greg Braden
are.
talks about this soft technology that we are.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
we can, if we're aware of these things, we can certainly not let those things impact us. There are technology available for us as consumers today that can help us, alleviate and protect us from that kind of thing.
Like
So it's
med
just a
beds
matter
and
of being
things.
aware of it. That's all.
Yeah, because we hear a lot of talk about med beds now, and
Yeah,
then some
med. Yeah,
people are saying med beds don't really exist, and it's like, I don't know, but it's just so interesting to me to think. And there, I've seen patents, government
sure.
patents, showing that they use the wide body area network for technology. They use us as like vessels, I guess,
Yep.
for technology. And that's like so offensive because we didn't agree to that. Like,
No, no. But again, we at some level we did. And this is something that we have to take a assessment of ourselves and realize if we live in this time and space, and when this stuff is going on, we kind of gave permission for this to happen, unless we
mm,
figure out that it's happening and we choose to pull ourselves out of it. But it's, if we're here now, why would we come here if we knew this existed? Unless we're okay with the fact that we're here, and maybe our presence here. What if our presence here is to remove ourselves from it, show others how to do that, and change how everything works? You
ah,
know, it's just shift the reframe it, and we become, instead of becoming part of it and being used, maybe we could become the very vessel for freeing ourselves from it.
so transhumanism is designed intentionally, unconsciously, maybe by humans, because that's like the natural path, the way things are supposed to be. And then once we're where we're supposed to be, we change it,
We
maybe.
change it. We just basically
Yeah.
decide we're not going to participate. Like I said, I don't participate in duality. I try to very much not get caught up in duality. And so transhumanism, I'm not interested in adjusting my biological software. I
Mm,
like my biological software, works really well.
exactly.
So
Right.
I don't really need anything. But now I do acknowledge that in some cases it could be extraordinarily life-changing for people. A person who's paralyzed who could now actually
Yeah.
walk as a result of that, I would never say you can't have that.
Yeah.
But like everything else, human beings always want to control and
Yeah.
limit. And that's just because and it's all based on fear,
It
because
is.
it's fear of losing what they have, fear of their whatever it is. And so, and we know that, hurt people hurt people. So we have, these people who have power, who are fearful and who've been hurt. And we have to just be aware and set our boundaries, pull ourselves out of it. But ultimately, we still have to look at with them compassion, because they're still part of source. They're no different than we are.
Mm.
They're just really confused and trying to control their environment in the only way they know how.
Gosh, that's so true. And if you look at like Elon Musk, he, made these chips, and they're there for exactly what you said. Let the blind see, let the,
Yep.
paralyzed walk. So yada, yada. Right.
What-
And then all of a sudden now he wants to mass produce them and let anybody, even though they don't have any physical problems, embed a brain chip in their skull. And, to me, that's like, that's over the top.
It's over the top. Yeah, yeah.
It's
I
so
mean,
over the top.
I can't wait to see what the health insurance companies want to do for covering that. So
That's such a good point. But, I would imagine they would be on board if it would prevent, because, they're into preventative medicine,
Yeah,
healthcare
yeah.
companies,
Which
like
is
big
funny
time.
because they're into preventative and I worked for a health insurance company for a long
Ah,
time,
there you
and
go.
they're into preventative medicine, except when it actually is cheap and free and works.
Right. Yeah, like if it's, neuropathic or some kind of homeopathic,
Yep, yep.
then that's a no-go. That's
It's a
a
no-go,
no-go.
right, yep, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
that's
no-go.
definitely a
I always
no-go.
find it to be very humorous when I work for these folks, and I actually taught lunches for people about how to do, uh, you know, living with homeopathic, naturopathic ways, and you'd be surprised. Everybody who works in these companies are really interested in that kind of stuff, but they won't touch it, at a corporate level, which is always a fun thing.
Well, yeah, because Rockefeller redesigned the whole medical system
Oh,
with his
yeah, yeah,
petroleum-based
yeah,
pharmacology, right?
yep, yeah. He
Pharmaceuticals.
was a brilliant marketeer. I mean, the
Yeah,
man, he basically rewrote the world to suit his purpose, which was, and the thing is, we know this,
we do.
we know this, but yet we still allow it.
We
And
do.
again, there's a part of us that we're complicit in a way
Yeah.
because it's cognitive dissonance. We can't quite wrap our head around how we let this happen or how it could have happened. And
Yeah.
so we have to get to that point of getting past that as a society before it changes.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're seeing it with Kennedy's work
Sure.
changing,
Yeah. Sure.
a lot of the foods in the food
Yeah.
pyramid. And it's funny because now I don't, 99% of the time when I'm shopping, I pick it up and I go, are there GMOs in here? Like, is there corn
Yeah.
syrup in here? I'm like constantly, and I feel good doing that. Um, and I think it's definitely a step in the right direction in terms of look at what they're doing. Europe has great food. You could eat pasta there and not actually feel like a
Yep.
bloated whale,
Yep. Yep.
like
Yep. The ingredient
here.
list is very different. Yeah. When I traveled
Yeah,
over
it
there, it was
really is.
funny to look at those ingredients and say, wow, how come I don't have that over at my place?
Exactly. And the red dye, like I stopped eating candy
Yeah.
because it's
Filled with
loaded with crap.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Totally filled with that.
Everything is yellow dye, red dye, blue dye, green dye. And
Yep.
it's just, and I used to like candy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
You
it's
have to
such
find you have to
a
find
bummer.
good candy, or I'm a big chocolate fan, but I always try to eat just pure cacao chocolate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Find the good stuff. It's just
Yeah.
some good stuff out there, like ice cream, Haagen-Dazs. It's 4 ingredients.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
you don't need
If you can
18
pronounce the
ingredients.
ingredients and there's only 4 of them, you're usually okay.
You're good to go. Yeah. So true. It's so true. So what would you like to tell folks in closing about why they should read your books? I mean, I loved it and I highlighted a bunch of stuff that like resonated with me that I want to go back to. That's why I like PDFs because I'm a big highlighter, so
Yep.
I can just
You
go
could highlight
crazy.
it. Yep, yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
But what would you like folks to know why they should read your books?
Well, I would say that my books they serve 2 purposes. First, they're just fun stories, and there's stories that are grand in scope. And like I said, I've put together hundreds of pages of information, and I have thousands of pages planned to write about. So it's a grand story. It's a wonderful story, but it's also a story that has a little bit of feel to it of trying to deal with some of the challenges that we deal with in our real world are
Mm,
reflected in my stories too. And I put some interesting ways of handling those things in there.
mm.
And they're just kind of my ideas to put out there and not to change anybody's mind or anything. But, first and foremost, have fun with the story. And if you learn
Yeah.
something that's interesting that you want to go pursue, that is awesome.
That is, and that's so well said. And again, you can check out Bill's work at billcombs.com. That's COMB as in boy, S for folks that are listening. And Bill, I would absolutely, first I want to say you should record your workshops and put them on your website because I would love to attend. Too bad I live a few states away from you, but we don't have anything like that around here, unfortunately. So maybe someday you can be inspired, record them so that we
Sure.
can enjoy them too. That would be brilliant.
Yep.
And I would love for you to come back.
Sure. I'd love to.
When is your next book coming out?
Let's see. The Merlin book will be out, I'm hoping April.
Oh, Well, would you email me and let me know,
Sure.
and then we could schedule you back in? I would
Sure.
love to read that
Yeah.
and have a big discussion about that as
Awesome.
well.
Yeah.
Love
I would love
magic.
to. I
Awesome
love
stuff.
Yes, and my magic is totally different than other magic in this case.
That's even more of a surprise.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm going to look forward to that, Bill.
Awesome. Thank you, Caroline. It's been a
Thank you so
pleasure.
much. Such a blessing getting to meet you and speak with you.
All right. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. And goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Talk to you soon, dear.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was a blast. So much fun. I loved learning from him. Oh my gosh, I would love to attend one of his workshops. They sound amazing. He's such a plethora of knowledge and he just exudes everything you just saw wonderfulness. So, thank you all for tuning in. You've been listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, and we are live on United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM in New Orleans. So, as we bring this conversation to a close, what lingers is not a set of answers, as Bill said, but it's a deeper awareness of the questions themselves, which I love. Always ask the questions. And these questions are about consciousness, perception, and the knowledge that humanity may have forgotten rather than lost. Think about that, right? The Quantum Gate and the Ascension Chronicles invites us to reconsider where the boundaries of reality truly lie and whether those boundaries exist for protection, for growth, or for remembering who we are, which I love. My sincere thanks to Bill Combs for sharing his insights, his courage to explore the edges of thought and consciousness, and his willingness to challenge how we understand consciousness and our place in the universe. And to everyone listening, may this conversation stay with you, not as a conclusion, but maybe as an opening. And thank you all in the chat. Yes, we love hearing from you. Yes, it's the right questions. Thank you so much, Carrie. You know, I love you guys in the chat. Thank you all. Heidi, everyone, Melissa, everyone. Francois, thank you so, Francis, thank you so much for popping in. Don't forget, we have a show tomorrow as well. And I'm kind of excited about that one because we're going to be talking about a fascinating topic with a woman named Dana Machuchi, I think is the Michuchi. I think that's the way you say it. Anyway, we're going to be talking about exploring sacred sites. And again, the anchors of human consciousness. This is a real big topic these days. We're learning so much about consciousness, and I can talk about it every day. So thank you all so much. Love you all. See you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a blessed rest of your day. Bye, guys.